Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chrissy Matheson, and I'll be your moderator for today's press briefing. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce the Premier of Nova Scotia, the Honourable Tim Houston, who will now take questions from the room. Go ahead, Premier.
There was a court decision yesterday on a sort of long-standing issue involving disabled Nova Scotians who don't have appropriate housing. Are you going to continue to pursue that case in court?
No. Off the top, I want to, sincere condolences to the family of Beth McLean and Sheila Livingston. What I want to say is their courage, along with Joey Delaney, the courage that they showed in pursuing this will leave a legacy. And I just don't think anyone should really have to take their government to court to make their government do the right thing. So we received the message loud and clear. We will work with the community to make sure that the supports are in place.
Premier, when it comes to small option homes, you don't just push a button and they open. It
exactly.
Costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
There's a long wait for them.
Yeah.
How is your government going to approach that issue?
And put that in the face of the housing crisis we have already, and so we know the challenge, and I do think that previous governments have, I don't think anyone meant any disrespect. I think they're just dealing with the challenges that are before the government, and the challenges are real. So what I would say is I can't fix this overnight. Nobody can. But the message has been received very clearly that it's to be fixed, and we will do everything we can. We'll work with the community. We'll be honest with the community, frank with the community, but we'll do everything we can to do what's possible as quickly as it can be done.
So where does that put you in terms of the 10-year roadmap that was discussed? You were asked about that question on the campaign trail. You didn't commit to anything there. Where do we stand with that?
Yeah, I mean, look, we have to do what's right by Nova Scotians. So I think we have to revisit that and look at what the roadmap kind of lay that out with against our own conscience and against obviously what the courts have said. But we're going to do that work. We're going to do that in consultation with the community. But the overriding goal is we want to make sure that the supports are in place, and that's the directive that the courts have given. It's the right thing to do. It's the human thing to do, and it's what we'll do.
Well, is there something that you can do in the short term at least to get you started?
Yeah, you have the financial considerations. All of those things are we'll have to work through. I would call that working through the details of it. But the overriding message that's been received is do what's right. We'll make sure we do what we can to get the supports in place.
And Premier, do you accept that there's systemic discrimination against disabled Nova Scotians in the system?
I mean, look, I think is that people did the best they could to provide the supports with what they had. I just think it was tricky to provide the supports, and maybe there needed to be more direction on do whatever is necessary. But I think as we stand here right now, we know we have to take a different path as a government, and we're prepared to take that path.
Premier, you and Minister Dunn had a meeting last week with some leaders from the Black community. Coming out of that meeting, the folks who spoke to us said that they hope it eventually will lead to some type of resolution. What, in your mind, does resolution to their concerns look like?
I think and this was kind of my message to the community leaders, and I thank them for their time and really meeting with us. But it's clear to me that decisions that I took offended the community. It was not my intention to offend anyone, and I apologize for offending them. So they had kind of a roadmap to kind of make sure we move forward all on the same page in a respectful manner. They had some very specific asks that they thought could help speed that up. I think certainly some of those things are things that I already was hoping and intending to do, so I think we'll find some common ground there. But in the actual actions, you know, they'll see some action from this government that I hope is received in the spirit that it's meant, which is to make sure we build a bridge and go forward together. So I think there's some things that we can do. And that we will do. It won't be everything they asked for, but certainly I understand the spirit in which they're asking, and I respect it.
You've been very clear about your view on Minister Dunn, but I'm wondering, with respect to the deputy, are you open to revisiting who serves as deputy for that department?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And is that something that you're actively looking at now?
And we were already. And we'll continue to do
Was that in response to the concerns that had been brought to you?
No, it was consistent with the concerns that were brought to me. And I understand why they were brought, because I already, you know, look, we formed a government, I guess, a little over a month ago. So there's a process. You know, we're gonna continue to make moves around human resource issues. We had already contemplated some where we need to look a little further. We need to look at different things. That's an evolution. I would say that this was something that we had identified, and we accept their concerns on that, and they'll see some action there.
Is looking outside the PC caucus for a cabinet minister on the table?
No. No, I do feel very strongly that the cabinet should be formed from the government caucus. We ran a very diverse slate of candidates. I'm very proud of the slate of candidates we ran. I certainly expected that we would have a diverse caucus, and you know, we'll do some reflection and review as to what we can do differently. But in terms of the cabinet that serves the province, I continue to feel very strongly that it should come from the elected caucus. But there are other things we can do, so I don't want that to be the entirety of the focus. But really what I want to make sure is that the Office of African Nova Scotia Affairs serves the people that it is meant to serve in the community. It serves the community properly, and that's where the focus will be.
You announced earlier today that you're having a meeting tomorrow with federal officials, and you're inviting the opposition as well. This is a kind of approach we haven't seen when dealing with renewable energy. Why are you going about it this way? The energy file, the discussions around the energy file and the move to renewables are in the best interests of Nova Scotians. It's not a partisan issue. Anything around the environment is, as I've always said, it's not for partisan politics. It's for the planet. So we'll have a meeting tomorrow. We've invited the federal members of Parliament and the two leaders of the other parties, and really it's just to make sure that we all have equal information and that we are hopefully all on the same page in how we move forward. There'll be some very specific asks of the federal government, and it's best for our province, it's best for Nova Scotians if we are on the same page on those asks, and that's the goal of tomorrow's meeting. I think there's been a pretty good uptake on it, so I'm excited about that. So when were the opposition parties told that they were welcome?
I actually think the whole idea came together in pretty quick order. I think it's something maybe came out of last week or something. So when the actual invites went out, I'm not too sure.
Have they responded and said they're coming?
I'm not sure, actually. I'm not sure. I haven't seen the list of RSVPs, but I just know anecdotally from bumping into. I ran into Darren Fisher at an event, and he told me that he was coming. So I mean, I'm hopeful that we'll have a good representation.
So I just want to get clear. So what's the purpose of tomorrow's meeting in terms? So you'll share with them what?
Well, we're gonna talk specifically about the Atlantic Loop, and the involvement that we'd like to see the federal government have in that.
Have you had any discussions with Quebec, New Brunswick, Emera about the Atlantic Loop?
Yeah, it was a discussion at the Atlantic Premier's meeting. Certainly, I have spoken to Nova Scotia Power about it. It's something that I think most provincial politicians see the value of it, and I just want to make sure tomorrow that my reading of that room is appropriate, that we are all on the same page, and that the members of Parliament are on that page too. So we'll have an open discussion. I think there's big potential there, but we need some help from the federal government on the energy file. We need some help from the federal government on the healthcare file. And I've been pretty honest with the Prime Minister that I wouldn't go just cap in hand, that I would go with the business case for why I think the federal government should invest in this province, and this is all part of that.
Have you ballparked how much money this would cost to upgrade the transmission lines? Because we're talking billions and billions of dollars, are we not?
We're talking in the billions. It's a big project.
How do you ensure that the ratepayer isn't stuck with those bills?
Well, this is why we need the federal government's involvement. Rate stability is obviously critical, and we know that Nova Scotians pay higher power rates because of our investments in renewables over the years. We've been leaders in that, and we want to continue to be leaders in that. But we have to protect the ratepayers of this province, and that's why federal involvement is so critical in this file. That's why it's critical to me that the provincial and elected leaders of this province are on the same page and really understand how important it is that the federal government support our province.
Premier, from your understanding, is there any way for Nova Scotia to hit its very ambitious renewable energy targets by the end of this decade without the Atlantic Loop?
The Atlantic Loop is certainly important in that equation. If the Atlantic Loop is something that can't happen, then we'll look at other alternatives. But right now, I think the Atlantic Loop is something that it just makes a lot of sense, and so that's where most of my focus has been.
Are you planning any legislation on capping greenhouse gas emissions further?
We're planning, during the campaign, we talked about a renewal of the EXPA goals. That's still something we're planning on doing. There's a lot of work in setting appropriate goals. That work is happening, and I'm hopeful that we can do something this session.
On the upcoming session, what can Nova Scotians expect as you go into your first one? I mean, this is generally considered that a new government wants to put its stamp on things to let the public know, where they stand.
I think the Nova Scotians can expect to see a continuation of the stamp we put on the campaign. We're very, very focused on a healthy province, a healthier healthcare system, and we'll continue that focus during the session and after.
Yesterday I asked you about HRM and its position on mandatory vaccines. They've reversed course and now more in line with what you decided. Your thoughts on that?
I didn't see the reversal of course, but my thoughts would remain the same. Is that we public health, myself, we're encouraging people to get vaccinated. It's the right thing to do. It's the path out of the pandemic. So we've taken some steps, on the guidance of public health on vaccine policy. We'd encouraged employers to do the same, and I actually think there's somewhere in the range of 700 employers that are participating in the testing program. So employers are stepping up, and for those municipalities that step up as well, I thank them.
Sorry, I'd like to revisit the House if I could. I know you're going to have a throne speech where you're going to lay out your priorities, but can you give us a better sense? Obviously, healthcare is going to be the focus. What are the main things that you're going to tackle first, that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, look, the themes of the campaign, which were healthcare, mental health, dignity for Nova Scotians, those things are all important. There's also, in any session of the legislature, there'll be a bunch of legislation around kind of housekeeping and cleanup of different issues. There'll be some things that just were residual that needed to go through, but housing will be a discussion in this session. I mean, we kind of know just the child poverty rates, and these things are all going to be coming up in the session, and I'll put them all under just a healthy Nova Scotia. That'll be our that'll be that's our focus, and that will remain our focus. I don't really know how many pieces of legislation or any of that type of stuff yet, but it's the first session for a new government. I'm excited. I'm excited for the cabinet ministers to have their first session. I'm excited for there's a whole series of MLAs on across all three parties that are new, and we'll be there in person. I think all these things are important to democracy. So I think there's a general excitement about the return to the legislature. I don't know how quickly that excitement will dissipate, but I'm sure it will at some point in time. But for us, it's we know we have our mandate from Nova Scotians, and that's fix healthcare, and that will remain our focus. But there's lots of issues, and we have a very capable cabinet and team, and we're focused on a lot of issues.
What kind of someone do you want to see, and maybe are there going to be any changes along those lines? I'm wondering about something like law amendments. I think a feeling is set in over the years that it's just become a rubber stamp. You'll have a lineup of people 3 pages long, and nothing ever changes in terms of what they suggest for the bill. What's your view on things like that?
Well, look, I think in law amendments specifically, we'll keep kind of the zoom-in ability. So we'll make it more accessible. It is meant to be accessible to Nova Scotians, and it's always been a challenge for people to find their way to Halifax and get Province House at a certain point in time. So we want to keep that stuff accessible. And I think what people should read into that is we are interested in what Nova Scotians say. I believe government should consult more before it brings legislation to the floor of the legislature. But look, we're not. I think if anything, the pandemic has taught people that things change. Sands shift, and I think government should heed that lesson too, even on legislation that they do bring to the floor of the legislature. If somebody brings a perspective or a point of view that just hadn't been considered, it should be considered. And if it results in changes to legislation, I think our government will have the confidence to make those changes that are deemed necessary from the process as it's meant to work. We want to be held accountable by Nova Scotians, and we're willing to do that.
Sorry, I was a little distracted in the beginning of your answer. Are you saying that you're going to continue holding law amendments at a distance?
Well, I think the distance part is still going to be an option. So people, we'll speak with the clerk and public health on that type of stuff, because we are in person. All the MLAs are in person. There are still some restrictions around the visitors gallery and stuff like that for some reasons. But to the extent that we can safely hold law amendments with witnesses and Nova Scotians making their way to Province House in person, we'll do it. If we can't do it safely because public health or the clerk or Speaker's office says we can't, then we won't. But in any event, I would like to see it as a hybrid, with people who can't get to Halifax could still present virtually to the committee.
Premier, I know Mr. Lowe will come out, but when it comes to affordable housing, you mentioned it. Where's the urgency? There's many people calling on this progressive conservative government to take a look at things like rent cap or support for the municipality program for modular homes. I'm just wondering, what are you doing now? What are you prepared to do immediately to address the housing issue?
The urgency is there. I can assure you that we feel the urgency, but the urgency is to come up with a real solution. We've too often we see governments trying to govern by sound bites and piecemeal approaches without really understanding the ramifications. So there's a huge supply issue. The fix to the housing crisis is more supply. So we're very focused on making sure that we put forward solutions that can address the supply, and we feel that urgency. We feel it, and Nova Scotians will see that.
Can I ask you about the municipality in particular with these modular homes? They're looking for secondary support services from the province now. They're going to implement housing for a certain amount of people in Halifax and Dartmouth, but they say they need the province on board. But where are you guys in supporting that?
I think there's a number of discussions that take place with certainly with HRM, but other municipalities too. So I mean, we're going to be part of the solution, and we'll work with those who put forward meaningful ideas, and they'll have a partner in our government.
Just to sort of rephrase that question, have you committed money to the modular housing units that HRM is putting up, and have you committed to provide supports that they're looking for from the province as part of that modular housing?
Not yet, but we haven't not done that either. Those are discussions that, yeah, right? So I think I'd say it's an evolving conversation.
On the rent cap, have you considered keeping it as long as the state of emergency is in place if the state of emergency goes past February 2022?
Yeah, I think that the ramifications of the state of emergency are there's a number of ramifications, and one part of the state of emergency is the existing rent control. It will be there as long as the state of emergency is, and I have not made any decision to separate those two things. So as long as this province is in a state of emergency, everything that goes along with that will remain in place.
Okay, that would require a change to the order that implements the 2%.
Okay.
Because it would end in February, even if the state of emergency keeps going. So would you
As long
change
as the
that?
state of emergency is in place, that will be there as well.
Premier, what's your understanding of how long the state of emergency might be?
Oh, man. I don't know. You tell me. Here's the thing: is the pandemic has proven very unpredictable. So we're respectful of the pandemic. We're in a new wave now. All these things are contingent upon two factors, as Dr. Strang says. That's our vaccination rates, which are improving. And I'm thankful to Nova Scotians for stepping up and doing that. As a matter of fact, I heard from a few friends yesterday who had been very hesitant that said, "All right, we're doing it." So I'm thankful to Nova Scotians for working together in support of their communities to improve the vaccination rates. And the other factor is the epidemiology. And that can change in a hurry. So I think we have to be respectful of the virus, and we're doing that through Dr. Strang's leadership. And I mean, I don't think anyone can really. We're all optimistic that this ends sooner rather than later. It's exhausting, but I don't know when that might be.
Well, when we go back to the housing issue, and some people are very anxious about rent increases over the winter. Can you assure people that the state of emergency is likely to go past February?
No, I can't. But what I can assure people is that we feel the urgency on solutions for the housing crisis, and those solutions will be multifaceted. And we're very focused on making sure that there are solutions that work.
Anyone flip you the bird since your kind offer of yesterday?
The ratio of waves to flipping of the bird got a little bit unbalanced, I think, with my comments yesterday. But
That's all the time we have today for questions for the Premier.
thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.